Live from the Fox 2 newsroom, this is Fox 2 Detroit.
And this is a story that has a lot of people talking today. ICE reportedly targeting a bus stop in Ypsilanti, taking parents into custody in front of their children. Now, we have reached out to ICE. We have not heard back from them at this point, but we did want to bring in an attorney who's handled cases like this for several years now. We're talking about Bill Noakes. And Bill, this is coming from the Washtenaw County Sheriff as we bring you in here on Fox 2 Detroit Live at 1. The sheriff saying that it appears that parents connected to schools were targeted at a bus stop in Ypsilanti during drop-off times. I just want to start by getting your reaction to this report.
Well, what's shocking to me is that ICE would do this without coordinating with the sheriff's office or any of the local police. Normally, in law enforcement activities, there is coordination across departments. Apparently, that didn't happen in this case, and that's why the Washtenaw County Sheriff has issued the notice that she has. Frankly, this is shocking. Most law enforcement agencies would not proceed in such a way. And this is what shows just how lawless ICE is behaving.
And so, and you've handled immigration cases before. Are you currently handling cases that ICE is dealing with now?
Well, no, I don't handle immigration cases. I'm actually a criminal defense lawyer. I'm a public defender. And insofar as I interact with police agencies, what I'm seeing from ICE is totally beyond the pale of what most police agencies would do. And frankly, if police, say the Washtenaw County Sheriff or the Detroit Police Department or the Wayne County Sheriff behaved in such a way, they'd be looking at lawsuits.
And dive into that a little bit if you can, please, because hearing of ICE targeting these bus stops, is that's not something, even though it is a public place, that's not necessarily something you would hear police doing, correct?
Typically, no. They would only do that in the most severe cases.
And so how would you contrast what police and sheriff's offices would do versus what you're seeing right now?
Well, first of all, the police would have identification. So you would know that they are police. They would not be wearing masks, and they would have badges, and you would be able to find out who it is that purports to arrest you. ICE does none of those things. They wear masks. They don't wear badges. They have no identification on their person other than a sign on their vest that says police and maybe Border Patrol. And frankly, they are armed in a way that most police officers are not, carrying long guns. This is it just shows the extreme to which ICE is going in dealing with an immigration issue.
And this statement coming from the Washtenaw County Sheriff, just to add to this here, Bill, quote, "My office will continue to be there for our immigrant families. We do not ask about immigration status, nor do we engage in immigration enforcement. And we will continue that practice as our job is to protect and serve all residents regardless of immigration status." She goes on to say that she's going to keep seeking answers as any ICE activity near bus stops or other sensitive locations is disturbing. Now, in the reports, I want to talk about this too, the reports that this is happening in front of children as well. Do police typically try to not make arrests of parents in front of children, or how does that usually work?
Well, typically what happens is the police try to isolate the person that they are looking to arrest from the other members of the family. Now, it occurs that they do arrest somebody, particularly if they're going into somebody's home with a warrant. Then there may be other family members that are involved, and I've seen that. But by and large, the police try to do this in as surgical a means as possible, unlike ICE.
And so would you described ICE as lawless in this situation? Can you dive into more of why you feel that?
Yes, because they're not behaving as a law enforcement agency would. They don't wear badges. They cover their faces. They operate with long guns, whereas most police agencies operate with pistols. Only in the most severe cases do you find them with long guns. And they typically don't identify themselves and don't bear judicial warrants, warrants signed by a judge. They typically utilize administrative warrants, which are usually warrants from their own agency. And under the Fourth Amendment, we are entitled as people in the United States, not just citizens, to be safe and secure in our person and in our home from unlawful arrest.
And that brings up an interesting point as well, Bill, because you talk about the Fourth Amendment, and that's been a big concern because you've seen reports coming out that ICE is telling its officers that they are allowed to force their way into a home using those administrative warrants to make an arrest. And talk a little bit about, in typical criminal cases, how that process normally plays out with police.
Well, in a typical case, what would happen is the police would, if they desired a warrant, they would present sufficient evidence before a judicial magistrate or a judge for that judge to decide whether or not a warrant is appropriate. Then once the warrant is issued, they would have to serve the warrant in their effort to conduct a search or to arrest someone. And ICE does none of that.
And so there's a whole process that then has to play out. They have to go in front of a judge and prove why there's probable cause to be able to force their way into the home, correct?
Exactly.
And so what would be your advice? And again, I know you said you're not an immigration attorney, but what would be your advice to, just as a lawyer, to people in these situations when it comes to handling this with ICE showing up at these public places?
Well, if ICE shows up at these public places, they would have very little choice but to obey ICE to be compliant. I hate to tell any client to do that, but the outcome could be so much worse. We've already seen ICE killed 2 people, and I don't want anybody else to be killed because they're standing on their rights. The best thing to do is to comply and then get immediate as you can legal counsel.
And that goes for a lot of cases, honestly. And my father is a lawyer as well, and he always says we'll tell his clients, the first thing that you do if police want to talk to you is you call a lawyer, correct?
Correct. Now, the difficulty with people being arrested by ICE or picked up by ICE is that they may not have access to a lawyer, but anytime they go out, they should advise their family that if they don't return by a certain amount of time, that their family should contact a lawyer or contact an immigrant rights group so that they can then pursue action to keep them from being spirited away to Texas, Louisiana, or Utah, or someplace, and then deported without their family knowing.
And so, and finally, I do want to just ask you about the situation in Minnesota as well. You talk about protesters having their First Amendment right, obviously, to go out. Now, we're seeing these situations just grow more tense between these protesters and activists. What's your advice as protests, I'm guessing, are probably going to keep going here in Metro Detroit as well? What's your advice for people going out to protest?
1, you have the right to protest. 2, you have the right to protest, but it should be and must be peaceful. If you're protesting peacefully, taking photos, videotaping, and not otherwise intruding upon the duties of ICE, they would have no legitimate legal reason to stop you. So protest peacefully, and be aware that even if you're protesting peacefully, you can be stopped by ICE or arrested by ICE, particularly given the methodology that they've been acting upon.
And again, to reiterate your advice as well, if that happens where a person is picked up by ICE, call a lawyer, get legal help immediately.
Exactly. But the key thing is letting other folks in your family or other folks who know you know that you're out on a protest. And if you don't come back at a certain time, they should then contact a lawyer.
Bill Noakes, defense attorney, thank you so much for joining us here on Fox 2 Detroit Live at 1, really just helping make us smarter about what is going on here and what our rights are in these situations. We really appreciate your perspective.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And again, if you're just joining us, the story that we are talking about is the Washtenaw County Sheriff saying that parents were targeted at a bus stop in Ypsilanti by ICE this week, and individuals were taken into custody. They were connected to schools in that county, and the sheriff saying that she had received multiple reports from community members about ICE detaining a mother in front of her child. Again, the incident didn't take place at school grounds, but near a bus stop. And the sheriff saying as well that ICE didn't coordinate with them. They didn't contact dispatch and typically does not provide any advance notice to the sheriff's office. Again, the statement coming from Washtenaw County Sheriff Alicia Dyer saying, quote, "My office will continue to be there for our immigrant families. We do not ask about immigration status, nor do we engage in immigration enforcement, and we will continue that practice as our job is to protect and serve all residents regardless of immigration status." She goes on to say that she's going to keep trying to get answers out of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So again, as this story really develops, we are going to stay on top of it and, of course, follow the situation in Minneapolis as well, because that, again, just rapidly developing over the last several days and weeks. Right now, it is 1:12 on your Wednesday.